Hello, I'm here at Saygin Yalcin's office. Join us to hear a little bit about his journey as one of the top entrepreneurs in the UAE. He will give us a little bit of a brief on his background, his journey, and his tips for entrepreneurs and how to make it in the region. Thank you. Okay, Saygin, thank you so much for meeting me today. I know how busy you are. So, you've been basically since 2012, 2013, just sweeping in all kinds of awards, from Entrepreneur of the Year, Businessman of the Year, all of the hot top under 40 awards. I mean, if I keep on listing all your accolades, we'll stay here all day. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you started all of this.
Where do I start? So do I start as a kid or do I start in Dubai?
Well, I mean, how much time do you have? That's the question.
So let me just start where my entrepreneurial spirit started. Mm-hmm. I think that's when I was around 8 years old, relatively young. Mm-hmm. I realized I have to solve a problem. That was a private problem I had in my family. It had something to do with the medical situation of a family member. So I thought, I have to solve this problem. And I realized that entrepreneurship, I didn't know the name back then, but it was all about solving a problem. And that's basically what I was trying to do with trying to play football. Because I thought football was gonna give me money and then I can pay anybody who can then solve my problem. Later on, I tried to become an aesthetic plastic surgeon, and that's gonna solve my problem because I can make a lot of money. But then I realized it's actually the role that I love, but not really the craft of the entrepreneurship part of the aesthetic plastic surgeon. That's really what I really liked, the entrepreneurial part of it, but not really the craft of being a medical doctor. And ignoring that, I still went to a hospital and did an internship, and I miserably failed. I was fired after, I think, 8 to 10 weeks. It was really bad. So I realized I have to follow something I really like. And that was entrepreneurship, more the commercial side of it. And fast forwarding my studies and everything, and a few companies I've built, I came to Dubai around 12 years ago. And that is where I started a company called Sukkar.com, which we later merged with Souk.com, and it became the largest e-commerce company in the region. Later on, I solved another problem. First of all, it was my own problem. Then I realized it's a huge problem, which is selling used cars. And that's where Selanikar was born.
Yeah, and I mean, you're very humble to say that's where Selanikar. Selanikar is now a multi-million-dollar business. It is, I mean, you've swept so many awards from that business, and it's one of the fastest growing businesses in the region. And as you say, I think it all comes from your inherent drive to solve people's problems. So you consider yourself a very practical person then?
Yes, I think everything in life is around two things: taking a decision and then actioning. I don't think anybody cares about the things you have almost done.
Yes, absolutely. And now that you see that a lot of people are starting up in this business, there's so many startups, especially now with COVID, everything is going online, e-commerce is booming, but not everyone makes it, right? So what is that inherent distinctive X factor that would make someone successful and actually make it?
That's, my thoughts are very organized nowadays because I've just wrote a book which is about to be published. That's why I can give you a very organized answer. So I believe there are 3 failure reasons and then 6 success factors. So, because when we talk about success factors, we usually ignore the fact that there's few people in the world, and when I say few, it's hundreds of millions, which were born in the wrong country, the wrong time, with severe mental disabilities. These are very big failure reasons, and we ignore that because we were lucky enough not to be born in a war zone and not to be born under a country's leadership which is hostile against entrepreneurship. And we were healthy. So these are failure reasons we shouldn't ignore, and this is something we're really lucky to have avoided. Having said that, then we have 6 success factors, which I believe I have always seen with entrepreneurs, and that is the strong bias towards action. So it's really less preparation and more action, because I believe we are built in school for preparing. I think everything we do in life is just a preparation rather than actually doing something we really want to do. So we prepare, but it's relatively minimal to the actual action part of our lives as an entrepreneur. The second part, I believe, is positivity. So we really are optimists. If it's 50-50, we believe we're winning. We do overcome challenges. I say we because I don't consider myself necessarily as the most successful individual in my circle, but I believe that I'm an entrepreneur. That's how I think. Now, the third one I see with entrepreneurs is the emphasis on reputation. And I think that really has many factors leading towards it. And one of the major drivers of that is ethics and morality. So if you can combine that with success and capitalism, only then you will really achieve success, the ultimate success. I believe when you look at entrepreneurs, they also have something called a standard of excellence. And I consider entrepreneurs in, many facets. So there's entrepreneurs who are opportunity driven. Those are the ones I'm referring to, not necessity driven, right? And there's a strong correlation between opportunity driven entrepreneurs in developed countries and necessity driven entrepreneurs in underdeveloped third world countries, so-called third world countries. So when you look at the correlation between opportunity driven entrepreneurs and the prosperity of a country, it's relatively high. But it's actually, when you look at necessity-driven entrepreneurship in underdeveloped countries, then more entrepreneurship is a signal for poverty in a country, because it's a necessity. They have to do something because nobody's employing them. So having said that, the standard of excellence of an entrepreneur drives action within those individuals, meaning they internally, mentally have set something as an image of themselves. So when you, for example, saw me 3 years back, I was 30% heavier. I was unhealthy. I was losing hair, and not naturally. It was really bunches of hair overnight, and that's because I was stressed. I was overworking myself, and I neglected the need for health, which is actually the foundation of everything else. So then, mentally, I set myself a standard of excellence. I said, I will consider myself as a high-performing athlete. When I had that image of myself, I would avoid eating junk food at night, or generally sugary and heavy carb-infested food. I would work out every day because it wouldn't match my image otherwise I had of myself. So I was doing it for myself rather than for somebody else. And that is something which really drove me all my life. I did this as a professional football player, as a teenager. I did this later on as a DJ, where I considered myself as a professional in a nightclub. So I wasn't drinking, I wasn't staying in that place if I wasn't getting paid for it. So I was there for 2 hours. And I do this in my professional life now as an entrepreneur, where I say, what wouldn't really fit my reputation and my standard of excellence? So I could go on, but I think we should continue.
I remember we had a discussion about your weight loss journey, and then I think you set yourself a timeline. where you will, that's the time where you will, I think you gave yourself a year or something that you will, that's your journey to health. And you put all your effort and work into that, because I've been working with you for a very long time now. And it does show something that you apply all your ethics and your perseverance and your work ethic into everything else. It's not just in your business, into your personal life or into your fitness journey. And when do you have time? When do you have time to do any of this? I mean, do you sleep at night? You have time?
So I do try to sleep, but that's a different problem I have. Generally, I consider everyone having the same ingredients, right? These are the 24 hours you have. So what we also have is something called mental energy. So you have this peak mental energy time, which is maybe a couple hours a day, 2 hours a day. Then you have another, they call it brainwave pattern, right? So you have certain states of your brain where you can do average performance. That's another 3 to 5 hours a day. That's it. Everything else is just low mental energy, and you can use that for distractions and interruptions, but you can't use this really for your plans or crisis management. So you focus, or what I call selective focus, and then allocate the best times you have during the day or whenever your brain is in that mental state to the most important things and most urgent things. And this is usually in the matrix, if you look at it, urgent things you have to do and very important. These are crises, right? And if you have something urgent, less urgent but important, that's when you plan, right? That's really where you should put your mental energy. And I believe my job is to take 3 to 5 good decisions a day. That's all I have to do.
So that basically changes from every person to another. I am, for example, a morning. So everything that is of value, of quality happens in the morning. Some people are night owls. So it's about maximizing as well your maximum focus effort and just to make sure you know yourself.
Whenever your time is, exactly.
Very interesting. And well, I mean, in all this environment and in e-commerce sector, we have to owe it to you for paving the way for a lot of people that are coming through now. I mean, you've started now we're in 2021, but 2012, 2013, the e-commerce system and the startup, even ecosystem was completely different. And people like you that basically paved the way for other peoples to come. We thank you for that.
I wish it was only me. I came in 2009, but obviously there were great entrepreneurs here, and a lot of them were my business partners and mentors and friends, and I can just agree. So obviously I cannot agree that it was me alone. It was definitely, I was a small part of it, where we realized that e-commerce, or generally businesses online, had many things to pioneer, right? So I came from Germany, I studied in the US, so I really saw how underdeveloped the region was in terms of internet businesses, because we did not only create the core business of selling stuff online, we also had to create the infrastructure around it, right? But that's really what an entrepreneur does. Again, it solves a problem by combining resources. So we looked at it and said, okay, so we have the products, now how do we get it to them, right? The government's obviously helped with broadband penetration. So that was the first thing. We needed people to be online and had relatively fast internet. But then how do you get the products to the people? That was the last mile problem, right? You could have warehousing and logistics, but then how do you get it to them? So we had to create that as well. Then how do you collect payment? The payment gateways weren't really built for the region, so we had to create our own solutions. Or you had to do cash on delivery, which was not really favorable for your working capital. So let alone the legal system. So which licensing do we have to use, right? So we had to combine several licenses to actually make this business legal, and then work hand in hand with the regulators to actually now have a license called, I don't know, e-commerce or online businesses, e-sales or something, didn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, 2021 now, we've seen the regulations are changing and the landscape is evolving now. So I think other entrepreneurs and people coming into the business are in a much luckier state. And one more thing I've read throughout that you've also lecturing in entrepreneurship and e-commerce. Do you enjoy that, the lecture part and education side?
I do, because I learn a lot while teaching. And I used to teach at the university. Now I do this with a tour, so I call it a tour, where I have a speech whenever I find time. It was usually twice a year. And now with the current situations, we stopped it, so I focused on writing a book, which I've just finished, so we're in the process of publishing that.
And when can we expect to see the book?
As soon as possible, so I assume if everything goes well, it shouldn't be beyond this year.
Okay, I'll wait for my signed copy, and it's a pleasure, Saygin. I mean, we can stay on forever and just having, all these questions is super interesting, but thank you so much for your time, and thank you.